The information from this video comes from Shanker's Self-Reg, Dr. Stuart Shanker, and the Merit Center's work. We encourage you to look at the website www.selfreg.ca for more information on topics such as co-regulation and self-regulation. Welcome to the School Therapy Occupational Therapy video series. In this first video on co-regulation, we will discuss how co-regulation helps develop self-regulation and the effect of stress on the brain and behavior. This will help us to understand and appreciate the difference between stress behavior and misbehavior. Co-regulation is dynamic. It happens when one person calms another by decreasing that person's overstressed state. Co-regulation also happens when one person lifts another person's energy so they can fully take part in a meaningful activity. Co-regulation supports the development of self-regulation. Self-regulation refers to our ability to manage stress and energy levels so that we are able to function in any given situation. We are not born with the ability to self-regulate. Learning the skill of self-regulation can be compared to how a person must practice playing an instrument or sport regularly in order to excel at that skill. In other words, self-regulation will not be learned in one moment and takes a lot of practice with the help of co-regulation. Co-regulation starts as soon as a baby is born and can be observed when caregivers rock, sing to, feed, change, and play with their babies with the goal of soothing them when they start to cry or become upset. A child's capacity for self-regulation will increase over time as a result of co-regulation, but our need for co-regulation never ends. We are all each other's co-regulators. In order to understand the importance of co-regulation, we need to take a moment to understand our brain and the stress response. In our brains, we have different areas for different functions. The lower and oldest part of our brain is in our brainstem and is responsible for automatic functions like breathing and heart rate. Above that, we have our limbic system, the emotional part of the brain that alerts us when there is danger around us. The limbic system, shown as the red brain, helps keep us safe by activating our fight or flight response so that we know we can survive a threat. The fight or flight response is also known as the stress response. Finally, as we move up to the top of the brain, we find the cortex, shown as the blue brain, which is the newest part of our brain. Very important functions such as allowing us to think clearly, problem solve, understand language, be flexible, focus our attention, and make good decisions all occur in the blue brain. The blue brain is where learning happens. Stress is a normal part of life and can be helpful in manageable amounts. But when we have too many stressors or feel bombarded by stress, we enter an overstressed state. When this happens, our brain begins to think that we are being threatened. The fight or flight response is then activated for our own protection. For our ancestors, the main stressors may have been a wild animal chasing them. While having wild animals chase us is not so common today, we are still surrounded by stressors that can trigger the same response in our brain. We will discuss different sources of stress in the second video of this series, but for now, the key points to remember are: it takes a lot of our body's energy to deal or cope with stressors, and that under enough stress, our limbic system, or red brain, is in charge. When the red brain is in charge, we are not as able to use the thinking part of the brain, our blue brain. You may find it helpful to remember this saying that under stress, we regress to the lower parts of the brain. This is extremely important to understand because once behavior is reframed as the stress response in action, a co-regulator will be able to recognize that the child is not misbehaving, in other words, acting badly on purpose. The co-regulator will then be in a better position to handle the challenging behavior with compassion and patience and not take the behavior personally. Remember, it's the red brain that is in charge in that moment. This concept is captured in the following quote from Dr. Stuart Shanker. The instant you recognize that your child isn't willfully misbehaving, but rather that he's under too much stress, your own stress suddenly drops. So, How can we know if a child is in an overstressed state and that their red brain is in charge? Remember that when we are experiencing a stress response, our body is getting ready to defend itself, either through fighting or running away from the threat. Some observable signs of the stress response include dilated pupils, heavier breathing, trembling, red face, sweating, and change in pitch of voice. Some examples of behaviors of someone in a stress state include kicking, screaming, pushing, throwing items, clenching fists, glaring eyes, darting eyes, restlessness, and running away without concern for safety. If you would like more information on different sources of stressors, please watch the next video in our School Therapy Occupational Therapy video series on co-regulation.